There's some pitting here, and I don't know if that's rust pitting. I'm almost leaning towards detonation, but I may be wrong. It could be just some rust, but that one's not the best, but it is what it is. You know, we may want to do some investigation here. I assumed that was carbon, but we might want to make sure that that's not something that... I assume that was just a carbon buildup on top of the piston. But we might want to make sure that that's not dents and stuff on the piston. I think that's carbon. It looks like carbon. But that's right where all of our pitting is. Maybe the top of the cylinder rusted, or the top of the head rusted, and that's what that is, the rust. But we need to look at that. I need to see what's going on there, because that doesn't look that great. All the other ones look just fine. I don't know what that is. So, yeah, let me look at that. Alright, I scraped around on it just to see, and that is indentations in the piston. That is not good. And I think what happened is that the top of the head rusted, and it kind of beat up the piston. I don't see any cracks, anything like that, but it's going to cause some detonation, I think, in that cylinder. I mean, all those little points, and I'd almost be tempted to take a Dremel and just try to smooth it out just a little bit, but I think that's probably a mistake. I think it's just gonna have to be, we're just gonna have to live with it, I guess. I don't know. It's got good compression, and the piston itself doesn't seem to, other than being dented, it doesn't seem to be cracked, doesn't seem to be, the integrity of it doesn't seem to be an issue. So I think we're gonna just let it go. Kind of wish I didn't see it. Well, I did see it, but I thought it was carbon or something. But yeah, that's not carbon. Took my wire brush from my drill and just got in there and went along the piston. You can see it really good now. And yeah, it's gonna have to be what it is. I'm not replacing the piston. Yeah. We'll just keep that in the back of our head and know that it's there, and eventually if we want to hop this motor up some more, like if we get some heads or something, we may just yank it out and yeah, do something about it. But we're not doing anything right now. Alright, so couldn't leave it alone, and I'm actually pretty happy with how it turned out. All I did, you can still see that we still got some little low spots, but what I was concerned about was all those little high spots, the probably 100 high spots that it had of causing detonation. So all I did was just take enough off to take the high spots off. That's all it is, take the high spots off. So we still have some little dimples, which I'm not gonna worry about. They are what they are, but we don't have all those little high spots sticking up. So I'm pretty happy with that. We're gonna let it be. You know, the only thing we could do is put a set of pistons in it, and we're not doing that. So I need to clean up. I need to plug up the other two cylinders and clean off the gasket surface here and get it ready for the head gasket. But pretty happy with the way that turned out. Like I said, it's far from perfect, but it's better than it was. That's all we were hoping for. I was just worried about detonation. All right, so we've got our gasket surface cleaned up. You know, I marked the distributor and I popped it back in place because I needed to rotate the engine over to get number 4 to top dead center so I could work on that piston, which, like I said, to me looks, we're gonna say 85% better than it was. Maybe 75%. But anyway, did that. And so, yeah, I popped the distributor back in because I wanted to make it as easy as possible. It's quick to pop the distributor in, quicker to pop it in than it is to try to get it all right again. So popped it in, and now I went ahead and this is an easy time to verify top dead center. So top dead center, both lifters down, and verified my timing mark is spot on, which that was the purpose of that. So we know our timing mark is good. I'm gonna remark the distributor back at top dead center, and that way I can pull it back out, and because it's easier to get the intake, well, I'm gonna have to have it off to get the intake on. So we'll do all that, and we'll just a little X through my mark over there, or I pretty much know it's on that side now, but we'll mark it, and then we'll be able to pop it back in place. We're not going to rotate the engine over anymore. We'll leave it right here, and we can assemble everything. Well, I consider this a milestone in getting this thing back together. We've got the head back on and torqued down. Put a little oil on the bolts. Hopefully you can see that on time lapse. These are not supposed to be done dry. They're supposed to be torqued, lubed. So we did that. I did clean out the threads prior to doing this on the block. And I torqued it in 3 sequences. I did final torque is 140 or 130 to 140 foot-pounds. I did 140, but I did it in 3 increments. I did 60, 100, and 140. There's my torque wrench. Not a fancy digital one, but I did upgrade a while back. I've had a couple cheap Harbor Freight ones, but I forget what the torque number they go up to, but they only go up to like 180 or something foot-pounds, and they're pretty short. This one's quite a bit longer, and it'll go up to 250 foot-pounds. I kept running into scenarios where I needed more than what my other torque wrenches would do. Like I said, I've got like 3 of those things. So upgraded, works great. Love the long handle on it. But yeah, so it's torqued down. Well, I broke down and bought a addition for the shop. So bought an ultrasonic cleaner. After all that scrubbing with the rocker arms and stuff like that, I was like, you know what, I need an ultrasonic cleaner. And I'm gonna go ahead and, even though I got them cleaned up pretty good, I'm gonna go ahead and run them through here. And I'm gonna pull off the passenger side, or the driver's side rocker arms. Since I've got a bent push rod over there, I'm gonna go ahead and pull all the rocker arms and the push rods, and throw them in here and let them run and see if it will clean those up, because I spent so much scrubbing and everything on the passenger side ones. Curious how well it'll do on those. So got myself a little pan over here, old transmission pan, just to set the basket in, keep it from dripping and all that. Clean up my trash right there. But what I'm running is this Simple Green Industrial, this HD Pro whatever. This is safe for aluminum, unlike for carburetors, unlike the green regular Simple Green. You should not use it on carburetors. They recommend a 3-to-1 ratio with distilled water, which is what I've got in here. But there it is, and I've got it heating up. We're gonna let it heat up. Once it gets heated up, I'm gonna throw parts in it and we'll set it to percolate. But I think this will be a good addition and make cleaning a lot easier. Well, I've got all the rocker arms in the ultrasonic cleaner. We're gonna let them run for a while, but I figured I would just show y'all which side did I work on. You can definitely tell the side that hasn't been off yet. I'm gonna take some time and probably take some paper towels with some brake cleaner on them and just kind of wipe all down in the valley. Just clean it up a little bit more. You know, we vacuumed it, but you know, we can get it slightly better without, you know, getting crud down in the engine, which is what I've been avoiding. And then I'm gonna do the same thing over the head and just kind of wipe it down a little bit. I'm not gonna go crazy cleaning it, but I'm gonna clean it up a little bit. And then the holes in the head where the push rods go through, they're really carboned up. So I'll take and put my vacuum down in the valley and just try to clean those out. And as the carbon falls, you know, the vacuum will pick it up. So it's kind of the goal. So I'm gonna spend some time cleaning, and then I'll bring y'all back when the rocker arms are done. And I think it'll be interesting to see how well it gets them clean without, you know, all the scrubbing and brushes and stuff I used on the set over here to get them pretty clean. Workbench is getting cluttered. I need to take some time and clear it off, but we're about to get this out of the way. We got new studs, picked up a stud kit from AutoZone. So new bolts here, new nuts, all that kind of stuff. And I've got all new bolts, picked up some grade 8 bolts from Tractor Supply. Replaced all these and the ones that broke. Come on. And they didn't have flange head, so we just got some flat washers to go on them. I don't think we need lock washers on these. We'll just put flat washers, and I think that'll be good. But yeah, definitely need some kind of washer on there because heads are small. And this is what they had before. And like I said, I don't think we need lock washers, but I did get some in case I changed my mind. But we're gonna put some Never Sees on these and put them in. And there's 2 different sizes. 2 are longer. Oh, the joy. Oh, man. Am I having fun? Sound like I'm having fun? What a mess. This thing is like impossible. It's impossible pretty much to get the exhaust manifold on with the head on. I took them all off together, and I guess that's how Ford intended it to be done. I am wrestling with this manifold, trying to get it in here, and it does not want to go. And before you say, well, shove it in from the back, I tried that because it seemed like the more obvious one, or slide it in, you know, just slide it in position. But the manifold is too wide but to fit between the upper control arm and the head. That gap's not wide enough to get the manifold in there. I may try jacking up. Is that going to help us? It might help us to jack up the car and get the end of the upper control arm in a different position. The other option is to either put a ratchet strap on the engine and try to pull it that way, or try to get up under the engine and just pick it up a little bit. But something's gonna have to be done because it will not fit the way it is right now. So let me figure out what our best option is here. I'm also trying to decide if I'm gonna run the heat shield back on it. I may leave it off. I don't think it needs it. It's really, I think, just for the heat riser tube, which I'm not gonna run. So I think I'll probably leave it off. I don't have studs to go in to put the shield back on. I'd have to try to find some studs. I'd have to find one. I broke one, and we could reuse one, but I don't feel real comfortable reusing it just because we broke so many bolts on this thing. So I think I'm just gonna run bolts, probably not run a heat shield. There's no heat shield on the other side. So that's why I say the only reason I think they had it on this side was for the heat riser tube, because it's built into the heat shield. So the trick was to lift the car up. Once I lifted the car up, I could get the tilted the control arm down, which increased the clearance right here, and the manifold slipped right in. So I just jacked it up till the wheels were off the ground, and it fit right in. I did end up running lock washers. I don't know why, but I guess it just made me feel better. So did that. So manifold's on. Now I'm going to take the time to just kind of wipe that down, wipe the valley down, wipe the other head kind of down with just some paper towels with brake cleaner, sprayed with brake cleaner. And I think that'll just kind of just clean it up just a little bit more and make me feel better, I guess. Yeah, pretty much, I guess everything I do on this is to make me feel better. These extra efforts I go through, it's just to make me feel better. And I don't think it's going to make a difference other than making me feel better. So that's what we're going to do. And I forgot to do one thing. Forgot to put a plug in the air tube hole. So I may try to put one in there. If not, we'll run the crossover tube. No big deal, but I was kind of wanting to get rid of it, but I don't know that I would have room to get it in on that side anyway, although that side I think has more room than this side. It would have been really nice if I remembered to do that when the head was off. And we got to get one of these in the back of the head. So let me see if I can do that. So if you're wanting to delete that crossover tube, it's the air injection tube. This is what you'll need. And it's a set of 10. You're only going to need 2 unless you change the ones in the front of the head as well. They're all rusty. You could change those out. Mine looked fine, so I left them. But this is more than you'll ever need, but I think this was $6, and I couldn't find them individually. This is the only way I could find them. Dorman 555-120. These came from AutoZone. Like I said, I think they were either $5.99 or $6.99. And you can do it, at least on this car, with the head on. I just used a little socket as a driver. Put that inside the little expansion plug and used a little hammer and drove it on. And it went just fine, just like that. So, got both sides done. So, mark that off our list, check. Now commences cleaning. Cleaning of this and cleaning of the valley and driver's side head. Yeah, you probably can't tell a difference, but I wiped it down, paper towel with brake cleaner, kind of wiped all in there and then vacuumed again. And I did the same thing for the head. You can probably tell less there, but it's as good as it's gonna get without like just drenching brake cleaner all in it and then like a wire brush or something. And I'm just not gonna risk knocking a bunch of stuff down in there and, you know, potential of, you know, stopping up the oil pickup or anything like that. So I think it's pretty good. So we're gonna let it go at that. So I'm gonna go, I've got the push rods and rocker arms for this side of the engine and the parts washer. They've got, looks like 17 minutes left. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these installed. I think I left my bolts in my ultrasonic cleaner for this side. So I'm gonna at least get the push rods in there. Pretty impressed. So this was running at 1.5 times and it never was completely up to temperature. But, or these actually went, let me think. Yeah, everything went, these pre-soaked, and like I said, I had already scrubbed these, but they're, to me, they're perfectly clean now. I don't think they're gonna get any cleaner than that. And then these went 1.5 times, and so 45 minutes with no scrubbing, push rods too. Still not up to temperature. Those push rods were scrubbed by me prior, but you can see, I mean, it's definitely taken it off. I'm kind of afraid to leave it overnight. I'm quitting for the day. Kind of afraid to leave it overnight with this stuff soaking. So I think what I'm gonna do is just transfer my stuff that's done over to here, and then we will rerun the rest of it tomorrow. And if we have to run it, you know, a couple times, I'm fine with that because I can do stuff while this is at work, you know. And look at those. 4. Should be resting. Ooh, they are warm. It's definitely, I mean, it wasn't up to the set temp, but it got pretty hot. So I am very happy with this. All right, so this is about 2 hours of running, and they are spotless. Now that's running in 30-minute increments and then checking them. But that's cleaner than my first set, and even cleaner than my first set after scrubbing the first set and running them through like an hour cycle or something. I don't remember how long I did on the first set, but they're pretty much spotless. And I spent the first set, the passenger side, I cleaned manually. I spent about an hour of cleaning, and this was about 2 hours. I spent an hour of manually cleaning. This was 2 hours of just letting this thing run with me being able to do other stuff. And of course, they're cleaner than I got them manually cleaning them. And, you know, I wasted an hour doing that. I've got no time invested in this. I dumped them in the basket, threw them in, and I worked on other stuff. So, big thumbs up on this. Very happy with this purchase, and I think the Simple Green Pro HD or whatever I called it is, you know, a good cleaner. 3-to-1 ratio. To be honest, as grungy as these things were, I don't care that it took this thing 2 hours to get these things clean. That's fine by me. You know, there were so many layers of carbon on all this stuff. I mean, yeah. So, anyway, I'm gonna let these sit, and tomorrow, it's the end of the day today, but tomorrow I'll put them back on the car. All right, so here I just was on Marketplace and I ran across this. It's actually the first thing I ever bought on Marketplace and got shipped, but got a good deal on this. It did end up, when I got it, it had a they had drilled out a thermostat housing bolt, and so I had to put a helicoil in it, but other than that it seems to be in good shape. So we're gonna put the former 460 intake on it, which then led to having to change carburetors, because that's a square bore. This is a square bore intake, and that is a spread bore carburetor. That Motorcraft carburetor is a spread bore, just like Quad-Jet. But I don't think there's enough room. This intake's a little bit higher than the stock one, and I don't think there's a room for an adapter to get it back to spread bore before, you know, we would end up hitting the hood. So just casually searched on Marketplace, and after a few weeks ran across a $40 Edelbrock. So that's what we're going to go with. We've got an Edelbrock, it's a 1406, and we're going to run that. It should be just fine for it. I think it's 600 or 650. I don't remember which one they are. CFM, but we're not a high horsepower engine here. We don't need a 7 or 750. This should be just fine. It's in pretty good shape. You know, complete, no damage. Just it's had some water in it, and I've got it decently cleaned up. I'll work on a little bit more, but it's almost ready to go back together. I've got a kit that I bought years ago that we're going to put in it. I bought a kit about 20 years ago when I got this carburetor for free. This one had a broken off bolt here, and it had been drilled, and it's repaired, but it's pretty thin since it had been drilled in to a larger size. It's very thin right there, and I just never really trusted it. So I'll show you. Actually, it's drilled right here. This bolt was broke, and this had been drilled to drill that bolt out, but it had been drilled larger. And this right here is very thin. It's tapped. It's drilled and tapped to a larger size, and it's together, but I just didn't trust it right here, and I never ran it. So it's also a manual choke. I didn't want to run a manual choke, so we've got it sitting here as kind of a parts carburetor. I pulled one of these out because this one was kind of rusty and these were in better shape. So we got a parts carburetor if we need anything. I'm gonna have to order linkage for this thing to get it over to Ford linkage, and to work with kick down and throttle and all that stuff. So got to do that. But other than that, this thing is almost ready to go back together, and should be a good carburetor for it. Well, I didn't like the black paint job on this thing, and I probably should have just accepted it and maybe touched it up, but I wanted to put it back to aluminum. I don't really like the painted manifolds, especially if you end up getting gas on them. It a lot of times peels the paint, and prefer just the aluminum look. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I took it upon myself to start trying to get the paint off this thing, and holy cow, some of it just easily flaked off, and that's why I decided to get it off, is because some of the paint was coming off, and there were spots that didn't have paint, you know, that had already come off. But some parts have like 10 coats, you know, pretty much all the flat surfaces, like the runners, the flat part of the runners, they have like tons of paint on them. I mean, it's ridiculous how many coats they put on here. So brake clean normally gets the stuff off. I sprayed it down with brake clean, and it kind of started peeling it up, and I got the thin stuff off, and then I've been using my wire wheel and my drill to get the really thick stuff, but I'm kind of getting into spots where I can't get to it. So I'm gonna go look in the garage, see if I've got some paint stripper, and if I do, I'm just gonna put that on it. Oh man, that's about as good as I'm gonna get it. Those crevices are really hard to get in. I've got a really small brush, that little tip brush right there, trying to get in these little crevices, and that's about as good as I'm gonna get it. I'll give it a final rinse before I put it on the car, and that'll get some of this is just dirt, or like dirty, not so much paint, but it's not perfect, but I think it looks a lot better than it did. That's the intake that just keeps on giving, and I should have just bought a new one. I needed to get these two plugs out because I've got two fittings that need to go in there for the heater hoses, and these were both seized. Ended up they had Allen heads, and the Allen heads stripped out of them, and so I had the idea on this one. I was like, well, let me drill it and I'll put an ease out in it, and I figured if I get the wall thinner, it may release some of the tension. It still wouldn't release, so I shoved a big bolt in it right there, and this is where I've drilled it. I got to clean up my mess, but shoved that big bolt in it, welded it up, and it got it out. And then on this one, I didn't even drill it. I just stuck a bolt in the Allen head part of it, welded that on. That bolt broke off. Then I shoved a nut over that bolt, welded it up, and got it out. So I got both of those out, but not without a lot of work. I've got the coolant fitting out on that will be our sending unit. I'm going to need a vacuum fitting right here, and then I'm going to try to run with, I don't think I need to tie in here or here. We're going to try to use any other vacuum ports that we need off the carburetor. I think all we need is, we need quite a bit of vacuum back here for headlights and stuff like that. That's going to come off of this port, you know, for the headlight doors. And then vacuum advance and a few other things I think we're going to run off the carburetor. And so I think we can do without this port, without using this. We'll leave it plugged, and we don't need this coolant passage here. We're going to tie in here for our sending unit. So I think that's got it. I'm going to run a pipe tap through these two just to clean the threads up before I put my fittings in there. But yeah, I need to clean up my mess. I've pulled a bunch of tools out today, so need to clean this up. I just cleaned this. This had some splatter and stuff on it. I cleaned that up real quick from welding, and yeah, one step at a time, little baby steps to get this thing going. Spent way too much time on this intake, and a lot of the time was spent on cleaning up the paint on it, which was really not a necessary step. But yeah, I like it much better aluminum than black. So now that we have the intake manifold all cleaned up and ready to go, we're going to clean up the intake manifold surfaces here and get it ready for the intake manifold. But I think we're going to go ahead and end this video right here, and it's getting a little bit long, and we will continue on in the next one, get the intake manifold and get the rest of this engine back together, and get one step closer to getting this thing running again. So thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more.